Joining me now is Joshua Levy, Republican candidate for the 13th Norfolk District State Representative seat. Joshua, welcome to It's All Local.
Thanks for having me, Seth.
So a lot of people in Needham are probably unfamiliar with you. So in a nutshell, who are you?
Joshua Levy. I grew up in Needham, went to Needham Public Schools, and afterwards I graduated from McGill University with 2 degrees and served as policy fellow at the Institute for Health and Social Policy. It was there that I looked at language and education policy in New Mexico and New Brunswick, Canada, and I found that the best policies are really those that are promoted locally, bottom-up initiatives rather than top-down. And since 2007, I've been working at Mass General Hospital and also at Boston University, conducting language research among stroke patients.
And so why are you running for state representative?
I've always been interested in policy and government, and I think we need someone in government who's equally enthusiastic about being there. I recognize that our state is facing some serious issues right now. Those range from the patronage scandal in the probation department to issues of borrowing that we rely upon when we make our budgets. And if we want to end the corruption and malpractice that goes on Beacon Hill, we need to elect someone who's brand new, who has never been part of this toxic culture.
Do you think it's really corruption, or do you think it's just that's the way politics is if you get elected, you're going to have people who say, Josh, can you get my kid a job? Can you get my sister a job?
I think that Beacon Hill has a very unique culture and is very prone to making people a little jaded and changing them a little bit. And that's why I really don't believe in career politicians, and which is why I don't want to be there for the rest of my life. I want to be there to do a certain job and get out.
What are some of the things you'd want to tackle if you're elected?
I think we really need to make sure that we have a sustainable budget and we don't rely upon the types of borrowing that we do. Just to pass the last budget, we relied on $1.5 billion in borrowing, which is 50% higher than the statutory limit. And if we're going to even break our own rules and laws, then that is entirely unacceptable.
How would you work then with the legislature to change that? Because a lot of the reps and senators up there would just kind of go along with how things are.
Right. I think that's why we need to elect new people who can ask the right questions, who can reach across party aisles and work with people who are sympathetic to different causes. And that's the only way we're going to end this logjam is if we elect new people with new ideas and who ask the right questions.
What are some of the other issues that you find when you're out there campaigning that people are talking about? What are the most important things?
For business owners, they recognize that taxes are very high and burdensome in many respects. And so we really need to make sure that we promote free enterprise and we promote a good climate for businesses to grow and develop. In terms of education, everyone is concerned about education, and they want to make sure that their kids have high quality of education.
The state, there's been some discussion about the core education curriculum. Where do you stand on that?
I really believe that Massachusetts needs to be able to set its own standards. And even though the MCAS is flawed in many respects, I believe that having our own standards is preferable to having standards set by an outside agency. Because whenever you have an outside agency setting standards, they're going to expect things in return. And we don't want to be indebted to anyone but ourselves.
You're one of 2 Republican candidates. What sets you apart from the other Republican candidate?
I have experience at the ground level. I looked at language and education policy in New Mexico and New Brunswick, and I talked to people all throughout the bureaucratic and the institutional ladders, from mayors to legislators to administrators and teachers and students, and it really takes a village to run a state, and I can recognize that.
Some people might say that that experience isn't enough. What do you say to that?
Enough for what?
Enough to be elected, enough to go do the job.
We need a representative who is familiar with the people, who are familiar with the way that the institutions that we have and the laws that we have affect individual lives. And that is what I'm there to do. I'm there to represent the people. I'm there to be a voice for the people. And I have experiences at that ground level. I have certain experiences that other people don't have.
One of the things that people talk about a lot is how difficult it is to open a business here in the Commonwealth. What would you do to change that, to make sure that businesses are coming here and they're staying here and that they're putting people back to work?
We need to recognize that we are essentially in competition with the states around us. And New Hampshire has no sales tax, and Massachusetts has 6.25% sales tax. We need to recognize that fact, and perhaps we won't go down to 0. I don't think we will go down to 0, but we need to make it possible for businesses to come to Massachusetts and want to be here rather than wanting to be somewhere else.
Do you think the 6.25% sales tax prohibits people or it hinders people from going out and shopping?
I think that it works in strange ways. So people on the border, the New Hampshire border, they'll go to New Hampshire and buy, their liquor or their sodas, sales tax free, and then they'll come back to Massachusetts. They'll deposit their bottles here, and they'll get the money that they never even paid for in the first place. So it sets up an odd incentive system, and people are still going to purchase meals. They're still going to purchase certain items, but maybe they'll go online to do that rather than doing it in the state.
Another issue is the health care. Where do you stand on health care for the people of Massachusetts and specifically the people of the district?
Healthcare is incredibly important. We all recognize that. And the Massachusetts bill that was passed in 2006 addressed the access to healthcare very well. We have 97% of our population who has access to healthcare. But what it didn't address is the cost. And I think sometimes what has been happening is some of the insurance companies and hospitals have been colluding in a way to make the same services reimbursed at different rates. And that really is not something that should be going on. It's preferential treatment, and that's what's leading to the rising healthcare costs.
Josh, you're clearly the youngest candidate in the race. What do you say to people who might look at you and say, well, I don't know about this guy, he's very young, he's inexperienced. What do you say to them?
Well, I've always thought that youth is a good thing, and diversity is a good thing. And when we look at difficult issues like education, we need to have diverse opinions. And I am pretty sure that I am the only candidate who has ever even taken the MCAS in this race. And that is a valuable perspective. I've also published several papers, and I've been a policy fellow. I've looked at education in state government, and I have an immense amount of experience, not just for my age, but for any candidate.
You mentioned that you don't want to be a career politician. What else do you see yourself doing in the future?
I've always been interested in research. I love finding out the truth, answers to different questions. And so as a linguist, I would love to go on perhaps someday to get a PhD.
Why should people vote for you on September 14th?
Our state is faced with some serious issues right now, particularly with the way we spend our money and borrow our money. But these issues haven't just arisen out of nowhere. They have been building for many years over multiple administrations. And this is an opportunity for our district to turn a new leaf and elect a new representative who is not beholden to special interests and who has never been part of the toxic culture on Beacon Hill. I will work to uphold the high educational standards of each of the towns in our district and work to restore competition, accountability, and transparency to the way our government spends our money. I will be your voice on Beacon Hill. Please vote for me, Joshua Levy, on September 14th.
All right, well, Joshua, I want to thank you so much for being here and wish you the best of luck on September 14th.
Thank you so much, Seth.
And I want to thank you at home for tuning in. A reminder, September 14th is the preliminary election. You'll be voting for your Democratic candidate or your Republican candidate. It's always important to get out there and vote. Polls are open from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m.